Good morning, hello, and namaste. Us, the students of Hind College, are presenting a video on our topic biodiversity. First, let us look at the meaning and definition of it.
Biodiversity comes from two words, bio meaning life and diversity meaning variability. Biodiversity is the variety of all living things, the different plants, animals, and microorganisms, genetic information they contain, and the ecosystem they form. A more philosophical way of viewing biodiversity is this. It represents the knowledge learned by evolving species over millions of years about how to survive through the vastly varying environmental conditions Earth has experienced. Seen like that, experts warn humanity is currently burning the library of life. Now, we are going to discuss the levels of biodiversity. Biodiversity is usually explored at three levels: genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. These three levels work together to create the complexity of life on Earth. Genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is the variety of genes within a species. Each species is made up of individuals that have their own particular genetic compositions. This means a species may have different population, each having different genetic compositions. Species diversity. Species diversity is the variety of species within a habitat or a region. Some habitats, such as rainforests and coral reefs, have many species. Ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity is the variety of ecosystem in a given place. An ecosystem is a community of organisms and their physical environmental interacting together. An ecosystem can cover a large area, such as a whole forest, or a small area, such as a pond.
Methods of protecting and conserving biodiversity. Even though the biodiversity of many habitats has become threatened, there are many things we can do to help reduce this danger. These are some of the steps you can take to conserve biodiversity. Government legislations. Governments have the power to control what is done to the habitats within their country. Legislation that protects natural habitats by outlawing development, harvesting of natural resources, or other human exploitation has a huge impact on maintaining natural biodiversity. Additionally, laws protecting specific species like the USA's Endangered Species Act helps protect animals that have already been impacted. Protecting habitats before they have been altered is the best form on biodiversity conservation. Nature preserves. Nature preserves are a form of government regulation and are often known as national parks. They protect a region and the organisms that live there from certain form of development and provide access for people to visit them. This is excellent because it protects the natural habitat and is a place where people can view the ecosystem. The goal is that over time this helps people have more respect for the natural world and increases pressure on government to further protect other areas. Habitat restoration. After an area is damaged by human impacts, we can try to return it to its natural state. This means bringing back the plants and animals that are naturally found there. This has been shown to be a promising way of returning biodiversity to a region. One example of this is the reintroduction of wolves into the Yellowstone National Park. When wolves returned to the region, they ate more elk and coyote, which increased the prey species of the coyote. Research. Understanding how species interact with their environment is crucial to protecting them. As humans further understand species interaction, we find new and more direct ways to help protect organisms and maintain biodiversity. One example is the use of wildlife corridors in urbanized areas. By researching many different species, we have found that this dramatically increases their population. It reduces the number of animals that come into direct contact with humans and provide areas for migratory animals to move long distances. Reduce climate change. As we know, climate change has disastrous consequences for all living things on Earth. We use huge amount of fossil fuels which directly cause climate change. We need to move away from fossil fuels and towards alternative energy sources and natural or sustainable living. Sustainable living is something that we can each choose to do on a daily basis, whether it be by taking shorter showers, riding a bike to work, or buying eco-labeled product. It helps reduce the amount of resources we use. This is arguably the most important way of protecting biodiversity because everyone can do it, often with only small lifestyle changes. If everyone chose to live sustainably, biodiversity in a variety habitats would improve.
Now, let us please move on to the main causes of loss of biodiversity. The main cause of loss of biodiversity can be attributed to the influence of human beings on the world's ecosystem. In fact, human beings have deeply altered the environment and have modified the territory, exploiting the species directly. For example, by fishing and hunting, changing the biogeochemical cycles, and transferring species from one area to another of the planet. The threats to biodiversity can be summarized in the following points. Firstly, the alteration and loss of habitats. The transformation of the natural areas determines not only the loss of the vegetable species, but also a decrease in the animal species associated with them. For example, due to deforestation and loss of forest land and grasslands, the animals dependent on these lands also decrease and are endangered. Secondly, the introduction of exotic species and genetically modified organisms. Species originating from a particular area introduced into new natural environments can lead to different forms of imbalance in the ecological equilibrium. Thirdly, pollution. Human activity influences the natural environment, producing negative, direct or indirect effects that alter the flow of energy, the chemical and physical constitution of the environment, and abundance of the species, both plant and animal. The next is climate change, which is perhaps the most important point. For example, heating of the Earth's surface affects biodiversity the most and the most directly, because it endangers all the species that adapted to the cold due to the latitude, for example, in the polar regions, or the altitude, for example, the mountain species. And the last point is overexploitation of resources. When the activities connected with capturing and harvesting, such as hunting, fishing, farming, etc., of a renewable natural resource in a particular area is excessively intense, the resource itself may become exhausted or depleted, as for example is the case of sardines, herrings, cod, tuna, and many other species that man captures without leaving enough time for the organisms to reproduce and replenish. Next, we must ask, why is it so important to pay attention to the causes of loss of biodiversity? Why is biodiversity important? Ecosystems provide us with many essentials we take for granted. Plants convert energy from the sun and make it available to other life forms. Bacteria and other living organisms break down organic matter into nutrients, providing plants with healthy soil to grow in. Pollinators such as bees and butterflies are essential in plant reproduction, guaranteeing our food production. Plants and oceans act as major carbon sinks. In short, biodiversity provides us with the clean air, fresh water, good quality soil, and crop pollination. It helps us fight climate change and adapt to it, as well as reduces the impact of natural hazards. Since living organisms interact in dynamic ecosystems, the disappearance of one species can have a far-reaching impact on the food chain. It is impossible to know exactly what the consequences of mass extinctions and species extinctions would be for humans, but we do know that for now, the diversity of nature allows us to thrive and live peacefully.
The two potential directions of global development of growing globalization or regionalization are taken into consideration. The scenarios also take into account two different strategies for dealing with environmental problems. In one strategy, actions are reactive and deal with issues only after they become obvious, while in the other strategy, the ecosystem management is proactive and is purposefully works to maintain the ecosystem. Four possibilities are global orchestration. The civilization shown in this scenario is interconnected in a worldwide scale. Priorities, commerce and economic liberalization responds opportunistically to ecological issues. In this scenario, poverty is decreased but other environmental functions suffer. Global environmental issues such as greenhouse emission and depletion of marine fish stocks are being addressed, order from strength. The world shown in this scenario is regionalized and fragmented. It is preoccupied with security and protection and reacts to ecosystem issues. The wealthy try to keep poverty, violence, environmental degradation, and decline of ecosystem outside their boundaries by defending their borders. Adapting mosaic. In this scenario, the political and economic activities is centered on the regional ecosystem. Society established a local proactive strategy for managing ecosystems. Technogarden. This is the last scenario that shows the ecologically advanced interconnected society where the ecosystems are provided more efficiently. In this case, environmental issues are handled proactively in an effort to prevent issues. People encourage ecosystems to generate as much as they can, but in this frequently compromises the capacity to sustain themselves, which can have major repercussions for human well-being.
Now, let's see the topic from other perspective.
I am home. I give you comfort. I shelter your family. See me for who I am. Home, sweet home. I am your refuge. I am the floor that supports you, the foundation that keeps you steady, the walls that give you shelter, the roof that protects you. I am your home. If you don't take care of me, I cannot take care of you.
And hence the conclusion. Since human domination is the greatest common thread of biodiversity because it exploits its power and consumes all kinds of resources by endangering the life of other species. Biodiversity is very important for balancing our terrestrial environment and our ecosystem. Humans are also responsible for pollution and unwanted elements in the environment. Biodiversity conservation is very important for the sustainability of a healthier land by preserving and protecting species, ecosystems, and natural resources. If we do not act today, we can again witness the extinctions of vulnerable biodiversity, which can further upset the balance of nature. Thank you.